I was debating on even making a video about this. I mean, if you think about it, in the long term, the 3DS and Wii U eShop closings are not that big of a deal. I mean, just think about it for a second. We live in an age where media preservation has become kind of at the forefront with how many things are going digital now. Pretty much everything that is put up on any digital storefront is probably going to be backed up at some point and made available publicly. But I mean, I couldn't really talk about it until now, because yeah, this is the end of the 3DS and Wii U era. It's weird to think about. I mean, I know the Switch era, quote unquote, has technically been going for a long time now, and goodness, that console itself is already turning 6 years old. I guess it's just occurring to me that things have changed a lot since then. I mean, goodness, the DS has been with me since I was 10. This is my first console, the first console I ever owned. My DS Lite was a blue one. This one was one I got a few years ago. That DS took me all the way to high school, and my 3DS took me all the way through high school and basically here to the end of college. I mean, just stepping back to think about it, well, it's enough to make a person feel old. Let's put it that way. But I guess more than just that, it's making me consider not just the consoles and how they've aged, including the Wii U, which I have less experience with, but I still want to talk about. It's just made me think about not just how much the consoles have aged and changed, but how the company that makes them also has over time. I don't want this to be like an overly dramatic or bittersweet video, but it's kind of hard not to be. The 3DS was announced and released around 2011, and it has been over 10 years since then, and I'm still kind of incredulous that it really has been that long. It might sound a little sappy to say that like a Nintendo console has been such a big part of my life, but the DS family of systems, it really has. I remember when I first got this thing, and I'd known that the DS had existed for such a long time, but it really hadn't occurred to me just how much fun could be had with it. I mean, I got this thing with like a GBA game called Dogs with a Z. That was my first DS game. And then I got, if you can believe it, not Mario Kart or Mario Brothers, but Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Winter Games. Soon to be followed by Mario versus Donkey Kong 2, March of the Minis. And then from there, the library just kind of kept growing. I picked up games whenever I could. I was given some, I bought some with whatever money I could make. This thing meant so much to me. I even bought Big Brain Academy so I could tell my parents I was learning something on it. And I mean, that's kind of the DS in a nutshell, if you think about it. It wasn't just a video game console for one group or one kind of person. It was for everybody. And I know that people look back on Nintendo's endeavors with the casual crowd kind of negatively, and I get it, but just thinking about everything that they did to make gaming and, you know, especially together gaming, so approachable, I can never understate how powerful that was. Just looking back at so many of the games they released, Mario Kart DS, New Super Mario Bros., Super Mario 64 DS, all of the Pokemon DS games, which I've heard are some of the best in the franchise. So many original properties and crazy ideas. We got, goodness, we had Brain Age, we had Electroplankton, we had all of these ridiculous like movie tie-in games. This was the peak of shovelware, and somehow some of those even turned out to be good. I guess it just felt like when this console was around, Nintendo was somehow always finding a use for it. And yeah, we got a lot of gimmick games. You know, we had the Zelda games on DS, Spirit Tracks being my favorite, a game I still love to revisit to this day. I never really got into the Pokemon titles, but I played so many others, like the Mario vs. Donkey Kong series. And yeah, obviously, big Mario guy, if you couldn't tell. But these games, a lot of them, brought people together in such unique ways. I mean, just thinking about Mario Party DS still, to this day, being the best portable-only Mario Party. And Nintendo tried it again a few times on the 3DS, and we even got one on the GBA, but like, that game, Mario Party DS, could be played as long as everybody had a DS of any kind and one copy of the game. Just thinking about download play, that in itself was so revolutionary and such a cool idea. I feel like this console brought so many people together in the weirdest ways possible, and yet it felt totally natural to be a fan of this thing because so many other people could say, yeah, let's bring our Nintendogs to a virtual park where they play together, and let's have a quick match of Mario Kart on the bus. And yes, I did do that. It was so much fun. I mean, I got a little nauseous, but like, it was totally worth it at the time. I was like 12, so just being able to do things like that. I mean, when I became, let's see, I was right in between middle and high school. I started wanting to have birthday parties. I'd never really considered it before. I'd had one maybe once when I was a kid, but I wanted to get a bunch of people over together and have a birthday party. I had no idea what to do as far as planning or what to do when people were there. But once we got together, I had an idea. Basically, every person that I invited had a DS. And yeah, we all played Mario Kart. And then we played some Mario Party. We also, I believe, had Nintendogs out once or twice. And once I realized that download play worked with so many games and a few of my friends didn't have a DS, I went hunting for a DSi just so that I could have an extra for somebody to share around. And I found one. It meant so much to me that this little tiny thing could have so many shared experiences. And that's become a tradition ever since. Anytime I have friends over, we usually pull out DSs and we all play something together. Just a few weeks ago, I was playing Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games all over again with one of my friends here at my college campus. Can you believe that? Like, this era of games, the DS and the Wii especially, I feel like they brought people together and made so many unique experiences. Like, the Wii is a big deal to me too. And it's been a while since, you know, the virtual store, the Wii shop channel closed down, but it still baffles me just how much was lost from the public eye once the shop was closed. And with the DS line, all the games were physical. And, you know, what we lost was a few online services. The only really online game I played on my DS by the time I got it and got into online, whatever that was for me, was Mario Kart DS, where some guy was hacking the game and had like infinite blue shells bombing all of DK Pass until there was like nothing left. Nobody could play the game. It was lagging. It was there was latency. It was miserable. But it was so funny to me that the one time I play an online game and I get a chaotic mess like that, kind of funny to think that years later Nintendo would actually embrace that ridiculousness officially in a future Mario Kart game. I do like to think they learned a few things from this era, but moving on to the 3DS and the DSi, things were a little different. Because now games could not just be physical, they could be digital on the go too. You know, we'd had some wireless stuff built into the system before, like PictoChat. And okay, well, on the DS it was only PictoChat, but that plus download play made for such a social experience. And it made Nintendo feel like they genuinely cared about their fans and how they interacted with each other. The DSi and the 3DS magnified that by adding online play to so many games that wouldn't have had it before, you know? Just thinking about the fact that we got a Super Smash Brothers game on a tiny portable console like this little toaster. The 3DS is my favorite system of all time. And I have so much to say about it that I've essentially presented myself with no notes and script. I am just talking from as cheesy as possible here. I'm just speaking from the heart. This thing has clocked so many hours of games, and so many of those were spent with friends. When Super Smash Bros. Came out on the 3DS, I was amazed. I still couldn't believe that a game like that could be running on a system that before I could fold into my pocket as a kid and just take with me anywhere. Yeah, it was bigger, it was more powerful, but still, this thing had a Super Smash Bros. Game. It has one of my favorite Mario Karts in the series. It has, yes, another Nintendogs. It has so many indie platformers and puzzle games. It had so much. And that's outside of the stuff that came with the console. It came bundled with so many applications and features. It had a whole home menu, customizable. It had the usual touchscreen and microphone from the original DS. It had cameras. It had 3 cameras. It had, of course, the stylus that was stuck right in there. You could play DS games on it and 3DS games. You could download DSiWare and just keep the fun going with the DSi shop, because basically all the DSiWare was transferred to this new storefront. We had Street Pass and the Mii Plaza built into it. It has the 3D screen that I know it goes underappreciated, but I personally think it's still great. I love having a 3D on in games, especially like Mario and Luigi, Mario Kart, and even Super Smash Bros. Looks pretty amazing in 3D. I'm just gonna say it. That's not even all. I mean, this thing had a web browser, it had its own social network, Miiverse, with the 3DS and Wii U being its own thing that Nintendo users could just interact with. It made even more of a social experience. And yes, I know we like to laugh about it nowadays, but I still think Miiverse had a lot of merit, and I wish Nintendo had kept it going for at least one more generation. It really sucks to see them drop that part of interactivity with their users. Remember when Sakurai himself would make posts about Smash 4, further adding to the hype train of the release of this incredibly developmental game for the series? I mean, everybody plays Ultimate now, I know, but just that one game alone brought so many people together. Yeah, the online experience was lackluster, but it was still free, and they'd worked on improving it little bits. I know it didn't get much better, but it did improve to a degree. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I guess I'm just looking at this thing in particular and realizing we had it good. We had it really good. You know? Not only did this thing have so many little features plugged into it from the get-go, you just unboxed it and there were so many things you could do. You could change the color of your system theme in a later update. You can decorate it with badges, reorganize your games. You blow into the microphone and whatever title you have, the icon spins around. You've got the AR games with the cards that came with the 3DS that every now and then I actually like playing, if you can imagine it. Face Raiders, just so many cool things you could do. And I guess thinking about it, like, legitimately, the Nintendo that made this console is not the Nintendo we have today. I don't want to act like, you know, everything was just better when I was a kid, because, like, I guess that's kind of obvious if you think about it. Like, everything seems better when you're young and you don't have to think about all of these complicated things like corporations and they have to make money. It's for a kid, at least for me, it was all about how much fun I was having with my systems. The DS gave me a reason to talk to so many people that I wouldn't have otherwise, and I made friends that way in middle school, high school, even college. The Wii gave me a chance to meet new people at my college campus. I brought it in some days and just played either Mario Kart or something else that had 4-player co-op, and I met a lot of friends that way. Just here on campus, Nintendo stuff, you see it sometimes, and whenever I see somebody with a DS, I'm so happy to pull mine out again and be like, hey, we could play something. And then it just happens. That is the power of a console that was built to have fun with. And I know the Wii U has its problems. I know that it's kind of unruly, and we look at it now as a bit of a forgotten relic. People still dust theirs off with, multi-layers of tons of dust, and it's been forgotten for ages. I get it. But when I look at the Wii U, I guess I see a console that was kind of the perfect blend of the DS and the Wii together. And I guess looking back and understanding what they wanted to do with it, it made more sense now that we have stuff like the Switch. I'll admit, ever since I completed Mario 3D World on this thing, I have not pulled it out as much. Every now and then I like to play Rayman Legends or Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. But yeah, outside of maybe Nintendo Land, I don't have that many social experiences with the Wii U. I only got it about a year ago. So I've had far less, of that magic, I guess you could say, that I did with the 3DS. But even so, whenever I do pull it out with friends, it's kind of a unique experience for everybody. And for their first HD console, I don't know, man. I think they did a pretty good job. It's not perfect, but I still enjoy what it wanted to do, and it stinks that Nintendo, the company, rested on their laurels so much that they kind of killed it just by letting it sit there. I think if the first-party offerings had been stronger earlier, it would have survived a lot longer and maybe even been genuinely successful. But even then, we had so many great games on it, like Mario Maker 3DS, and the Bayonetta series I've heard is very good. Wonderful 101, Rayman, Donkey Kong, of course Nintendo Land. How could I go without mentioning it? It's like the system seller. And yeah, Smash 4 again. Being the big party game that it was, so many people played this, just together as a family or online, stuff like that. And of course Mario Kart 8, thinking about how unique that game was. We got some, I believe we had Breath of the Wild that came to the Wii U and the Switch, and then some pretty great HD ports of games that people loved, like Wind Waker and Twilight Princess. But, I mean, if you guys can't tell, I don't have as much to say about it because the 3DS was always my bread and butter. I carried my old 3DS around so much that the notification panel actually cracked, and right around that corner spot, it genuinely started just breaking apart. I held it together with glue. I didn't know how to fix systems yet, so it was all scary for me, and I crazy glued that sucker as long as I could, kept it alive until I had to buy a new 3DS. But until then, I really loved that thing. Not just because it was a fun system, but because I genuinely felt like I was being part of something. And now I move forward thinking about the Switch and realizing that as the 3DS and Wii U eShops have closed now, so much is being lost to the casuals, to the general public. Now, since the shops are closed, I can also say that there are ways to get these games back. It's not too difficult, as a matter of fact. It's getting easier. Getting, deleted games that were removed from the shop or games in different countries is much easier than it was when this thing was still new. full backups, almost full backups have been made of the 3DS eShop, and I have to assume with the Wii U's library it wasn't that hard to do so either. At least the games that, you know, most people are thinking of. But the thing is, no matter how many backups of these games there are, it's the systems that made them so different. Having a dual screen device, having a thing like the TS and the 3DS and the DSi and the Wii U exist meant that you were getting an experience unlike any other. And I know that not all of them worked. The Wii U especially didn't work. We get that. You know, I totally understand why people are saying that the Switch is better. This is something I want to make a video about one day. But for now, I just want to talk about... I guess I want to make a kind of argument that there is something to be missed here. Yeah, we can emulate a lot of the games on these systems now, and hey, it's getting more accurate by the day. It's awesome. I love seeing it. I love seeing the preservation work being done for these systems. But the hardware itself, there's something that's just irreplaceable about it. I'm not saying that, you know, these things are glass cannons, or that they're all just gonna go poof one day. I mean, they will. It'll probably take a much longer time than something like the Wii U, because, sheesh. I mean, everybody had one of these things. Some people still have them in a drawer sitting around with their batteries probably getting swollen. I had to replace the battery in this thing just a few months ago just to keep it alive because it had actually swollen, because yeah, I hadn't picked it up for a while. This year, after about a full year and a half of catching up on console gaming with the Wii U and the Switch especially in the past year and a half, it wasn't just the shops closing this year that made me think about it. I guess as I was, you know, preparing for this semester being my last semester, it was occurring to me that as I was playing my Switch, something felt off. And I don't really know why I decided to open my 3DS again. I'm pretty sure I was looking to play something very specific that I'd been talking about somebody with on maybe Discord. But as soon as I popped that thing back open and charged it up and reopened my games, it all came back to me. And somehow I have reignited my passion for these handheld systems all over again. I don't know if I'm the only one who's been in that kind of mood lately, but as soon as I started playing these games again and then thinking about it as February rolled around, realizing we had a month until the eShops closed, it kind of started to set in like, this is a big deal. The DS came out around 2004-05, and it's only now just closing. You know, the whole family of systems is essentially lost media and hardware now, abandonware. I'm just trying to think, with all the stuff I just said, how much of that really made it to the Switch? I mean, it's got the touchscreen. Most games don't use it even when they could. Stuff like, you know, Animal Crossing, you can't drag and drop things anymore if you're in handheld. I guess a few Mario Party games like have a mode or an option where you can use the touchscreen. Okay, well, what else does it have? You can take screenshots. You can save 30-second video clips. Quality stinks, but you have a way of capturing cool things that happen in games now. That's cool. Couldn't do that before. You can look at your shiny new Nintendo Switch Online subscription. There's essentially nothing you can do with the Switch when you first get it. You have to get a game with it, or you basically have a brand new console that does nothing. Isn't that weird? I mean, yeah, sure, when you got the DS, you couldn't do much with it either. But even that had something like a Picto Chat. And keep in mind, that system was backwards compatible with games you already owned. You could play Game Boy Advance stuff on this thing. And so many people that were hopping on the DS from day one, yeah, probably big Nintendo fans. They already had GBA games to play. This console was so diverse and versatile in just how you used it. And here's the Switch, being the modular system it is. You can already see I've put the Split Pad Pro on mine. And yet, when you get it, you can make a profile and a me with no music, mind you. And then you go to your blank, empty home menu and nothing. And I feel like that is such a perfect allegory for how I feel about the Nintendo of today. I can't be the only one who feels this way, right? Because just for the last 5 years, the Switch has taken the world by storm. It is selling better than anything Nintendo's ever made. It might even be close to surpassing the DS family. Maybe it already has. But I know I'm not the only person who feels this way, that there is a giant hole where this new system is trying to fill it, and it just doesn't. I mean, I think it goes deeper than the missing second screen and no microphone, it doesn't fold like a clamshell, okay, whatever. It doesn't have download play anymore because games are too big for that now. Even so, Nintendo as a company, I feel, has perfectly embodied the same feeling of nothing that you get when you unbox a Switch. It's kind of weird, isn't it? Doesn't feel right. It's almost like, in some weird way, the Nintendo we have now is emptier than the one we had before. Am I the only one who thinks that? Because I've seen a lot of videos talking about this console and how it compares to what came before it, and something just seems missing, I genuinely feel like Nintendo has become far more corporate than they ever were when the DS first launched. We had people like Reggie Fils-Aimé, we had people like Satoru Iwata, and you can, if you want to, blame or support all of a company's decisions by one person, and generally that's not a great thing to do because it doesn't make that much sense. But I don't know, something about Iwata being gone and just watching Nintendo's steady decline since his passing, it doesn't feel random to me. This is not the first example that I can think of a company becoming like this after someone's passing, or after somebody leaves, or after a major change goes through that kind of shakes things up. But I just feel like with Nintendo specifically, they have become the one thing that I felt made them that kept them from standing amongst the other gaming giants to be exactly like them. Oh, don't get me wrong, the Switch is still plenty different than the other consoles out right now. It's certainly a lot more alive than a service like Stadia, and it stands toe-to-toe in versatility with a PS5. That thing's enormous. And it's more modular than the current Xbox. And sure, it's underpowered, so, it ticks that box, as most Nintendo consoles have. The funny thing is, though, I feel like the DS family of systems, the Wii, the Wii U, they made the most of their limitations. And the Switch, it kind of even struggles to meet them. It's kind of odd, isn't it? Just thinking about how this hardware seems to be failing so quickly when the Wii was an indestructible brick and the DS and 3DS were so versatile. As long as you kept them in a good case, they would last so long. You could have them forever. The batteries that didn't die when they were in sleep mode. I mean, people are pulling out their DSs 5 years later and they still have a battery charge. I'm not saying that the hardware didn't fail. Of course it does. All the time. You know, as this stuff gets older, emulation and preservation becomes more of our future than ever before. And it's incredibly important with this line of systems specifically. It's one of the reasons that I'm looking forward to using more devices to emulate this stuff to keep it alive. Like a tablet or a smartphone, or even something as weird as a Surface Duo, or, you know, the retro emulation systems coming out right now. The Steam Deck is apparently being usable as a gamepad for emulators now, so that people can have the gamepad functionality back. I don't really know where I'm going with this point, but I think it just kind of goes to show that as the hardware here gets older, the more distant I feel from Nintendo as a company. Because ever since the Switch was announced, they've certainly turned around their marketing strategy. I no longer feel like they're only catering to little children who don't know what video games are. And that's okay, frankly, to be completely honest with you. I think the games probably shouldn't be introduced to kids until, you know, they're actually old enough for them. Even the simple things, but that's a story for another day. I guess what I'm trying to say is it genuinely feels that even though Nintendo's marketing strategy has turned around, the way that they treat their customers has gone so far downhill that I barely recognize them anymore. Oh sure, they'll replace your Joy-Cons for free. They'll repair them without any charge. They repaired my Switch console when one of the right speaker blew out once. But the only reason they're doing that for free is because they were almost sued over it. Because the Joy-Con controllers are so weak and flimsy and temporary compared to everything that this company has ever made, that they essentially have a bigger ticking time bomb on them than any other controller ever made. The console itself has had issues of overheating, batteries expanding, the Joy-Con rails weaken, the Joy-Cons themselves weaken and they fall off the stupid thing. HDMI issues with using third-party docks, that's normal I guess, but even so, yeah, I just get the feeling that where Nintendo was fully for their consumers and genuinely trying to bring more people together with their previous hardware, I don't see them doing that anymore. They lock these really weird benefits, totally random ones, behind Nintendo Switch Online members. They overcharge for sequels and ports that should probably not be going for the price of a full game that came out 10 years ago. They're completely silent when we actually need them to step up and make a change on something that we need them to. You know, I'm glad I got the Switch. Catching up on some of the games that I missed out on years ago and even recently has been great. There have been some fantastic first-party offerings. Third-party offerings have been pretty good too. There have been good games, really good games. And yes, just like these previous systems, they've brought people together. The Switch is portable. It's not perfectly portable, but it's better off than a Wii U or another modern system. But I feel like the console itself, as with my relationship with this company, has become so distant and non-existent that I'm kind of wondering if even investing in this company anymore is actually worth it, you know? Investing my time, money, and yeah, you know, social stuff on the system, just, you know, all they really have is multiplayer games. There's no social network to speak of. You can hook up your Twitter account to your Switch if you really want to. But man, just thinking about where we've come from and how much fun I've been having with my 3DS since I pulled it out again this year, it's making me really, really miss this era. I'm not gonna pretend things were perfect. I mean, I got the 3DS after the price cut. This thing was incredibly overpriced when it first came out. The new 3DS XL went for less money than the regular 3DS did when it first launched. That kind of says a lot. But you know what? Just something like that. Something like Nintendo seeing that their system wasn't selling, and so they genuinely made a change to try to course correct and fix it. They got more first-party offerings on the system. They sliced they sliced the price. They got more features working on the thing like Miiverse, and they threw an internet browser in there, eventually adding themes, badges, and even more Street Pass functionality. They made this thing better over time. And the Switch, I feel like it's somehow gotten worse. I've barely had mine for more than a year and a half, and I already feel like the hardware is weakening in my hands. I shouldn't feel that, right? I'm not the only one who thinks that. Like, yeah, I've played it a lot, but it's also spent a lot of time sitting here in a dock, completely protected for the most part, and I still feel like it's slowly dissolving. Not just physically. It's more of a feeling than anything else. I guess what I'm most worried about with this company and how they treat their systems is exactly what happened the last time Nintendo was incredibly successful. When the Wii and the DS came out, Nintendo had struck gold. They found their audience. They found a new audience. You could say they pushed some hardcore people away, but they brought them back with games that felt like they were meant for them. And they covered so many bases at once, and that was great. You know, watching them succeed so well and then release the 3DS and the Wii U to so little success at first, watching what happens when this company rests on their laurels, it's scary. It sucks, you know? I mean, they eventually course corrected with the 3DS, sure, but the Wii U never recovered. And now that the Switch is being so successful, I guess what I'm most worried about is this company falling into that same pitfall and eventually just dropping entirely into a lazy zone again. I feel like we're already there, and that has me so worried for the future. I'm starting to think, and don't quote me on this, maybe they'll bring it around for the next console, but I'm starting to think that at least for a long time, I think the Switch is going to be my last Nintendo console. I mean, part of that comes from my newfound appreciation for the 3DS and everything it does. I'm really happy to be playing it again. The last few months, just having some of these old games out and re-experiencing them, some for the first time. Goodness, I just started replaying Pokemon Shuffle. It was a free-to-play game that I got with the 3DS, and I lost my save file when I transitioned to the new one for some reason. So I only hopped back into it a few weeks ago, and it's been great playing that again. I just beat Mario and Luigi Paper Jam. Checked up on my Nintendogs, started playing some little indie things again. You know, there were so many companies who knew how to use this system well, like Shine Entertainment and Way Forward. I can't be the only one who feels like Nintendo has changed a lot more. Maybe you could say that they've potentially overcorrected themselves in a way that feels not unprofessional. If anything, they've become more professional with how they treat their customers, which has its upsides and drawbacks. I feel like where people argued Nintendo was too kid-friendly and hand-holding for a long time, now they've almost become cold and distant. I hate seeing that because I like seeing the Switch succeed. I'm happy for them, really, honest. The Switch has given me some pretty unique experiences that I have shared with others. I've spent a long time making levels in Mario Maker 2. I've tried and enjoyed a brand new fitness game that actually does something with Ring Fit Adventure. And I haven't played some of the more classics like Smash or anything like that, but I've gotten to play those on other people's systems. Smash Ultimate just isn't for me, you know. I bought Smash 3DS for the novelty, I guess you could say. But beyond that, let's see. What else have I played on the Switch? Some good indie games, a few first-party offerings. I've bought basically 0 of the Wii U ports, to be honest. And Breath of the Wild. And half of my enjoyment of that game is coming from playing it on stream with my viewers. I guess I'm trying to think of any experience that I could have on the Switch that I couldn't have on another console. Maybe not to the same degree or capacity, and maybe it wouldn't be as portable, but step back for a minute and think about this, I guess. If you could play a majority of your Switch library on another console, like an Xbox or a PlayStation, or even Steam, like a Steam Tech, what would change? Because I'm thinking about it, and compared to the experiences I couldn't get anywhere else on the DS, I feel like if Nintendo started releasing these games on other hardware, nothing would change. That doesn't sound right. Because as long as I've known Nintendo, they've always been striving to do something different, but not just for the sake of being different. It's because they genuinely had an idea on how to solve a problem, or to bring people more together, or take something like a weird gimmick and make it work to its fullest potential to make something that the world had never seen before. The Switch technically can get away with saying it does that. And that's because of how modular it is. You can put more things on it. You can attach it to a smart cardboard. You can play Mario Kart on your living room floor and see what Mario sees in the real world. That's novel, I guess. You can play a game like Ring Fit Adventure. Uses the console's controllers. That's cool. I guess if you really want to stretch it, Nintendo Labo is a kind of a neat concept. I'm not saying that every Nintendo console needs to have a superior gimmick that makes it especially different, but I feel like when this company is challenged to make something like that work, they're at their best, because they're genuinely trying. And I'm trying to think of playing a Zelda, or a Mario Odyssey, or even a Super Smash Bros. On another console. Yeah, would it feel weird? Sure, but I think basically nothing besides that tiny feeling would change. I could adjust. I wouldn't mind playing a Mario game on an Xbox. I've never had one of those before. What about a Zelda game on a PlayStation? That sounds kind of cool. I mean, heck, the controllers are so high quality with their many different ideas. I can think of 1,000 ways that these games would work on that system. Or another one. That's weird. That's very weird. Since when have Nintendo consoles felt so interchangeable with another? I mean, I guess in the classic days, each console had to be incredibly different because it was such a high rate of competition. And I mean, hey, when Nintendo was going up against Sega in the video game wars, if you will, they had competition, genuine competition. They had to work for their success. Same thing with the Wii and the DS. They knew that if they were going to release these consoles with these gimmicks, they had to work for it. They've had to work to make the Switch function, sure. But now that it works to the bare minimum, you know, they've supposedly fixed the issue of Joy-Con drift. They've made an eShop that bakes right into the console that runs at 5 frames per second and runs on Amazon Web Services. And they have, I suppose, if you really squint, managed to diversify the system with the Switch Lite. But beyond that, is this the Nintendo that any of us want to support? You know, I bought my Switch at a pawn shop, and I feel like I've essentially missed nothing. Normally, I love the unboxing experience. It's cool, getting something new, seeing it for the first time and being like, wow, that's a cool new thing. I feel like getting a Switch barely used from this pawn shop changed absolutely nothing in how I've experienced it. They let me test it beforehand, and the controllers have been fine. They've not managed to drift, but I haven't played any overly intensive games on them, so that's part of it. But I guess the feeling I'm looking for, the word I'm looking for, is superfluous. The Switch, in some weird way, despite being totally new with a totally new gimmick, new controllers, new ideas, fresh new franchises, and you know, a big new option, you know, of playing your games in TV, on a TV or in handheld, the Switch has become superfluous. Why? Why would anybody feel that? I've been talking for a pretty long time on how I feel about these things. And I guess I'd like to hear your stories too and what you guys think about all this. Hopefully I didn't talk your ear off for too long. But I guess the point I want to make with all of this is that just because the Wii U and 3DS eShops have closed should not change how we experience these games. Nintendo wants us to. From now on, I have the feeling that it's going to be a one console thing with this company. And they're going to expect us to throw away each one as it dies and buy their new thing. Nintendo, being the quote-unquote Apple of the video game industry, has never felt more real than now. But I'm not going to stop playing the DS, or the 3DS, or even the Wii U. I'm going to pull it out from time to time. You know why that is, though? It's turning that thing on after an hour or so of charging, being greeted by a home menu that feels warm and friendly and inviting. It's the experience of seeing that somebody's online after so long for the first time. It's passing somebody on the street and actually having the console tell you, hey, that's another person with a 3DS. Isn't that cool? It's the feeling that all of these games mattered to the people who made them, and they wanted to make sure people enjoyed them together. When I compare that to a console that is not only underpowered, but is supposed to be running the quote-unquote latest gen games, and even at a resolution like 720 or 1080p, it can't keep up with that. And I think about the subscription service with NSO and the few benefits it offers, and the multiple tiers and what they bring. How all of those games that people are playing via a Nintendo Switch Online are eventually going to die. You're not going to be able to transfer those saves forever. They'll eventually give up. You know, there will be a time when Nintendo says, okay, that's enough. You can buy the new subscription service coming out. for our next console, and you can play those games again. When I think about everything that's going to eventually happen to the Switch the way it's happening to the 3DS and Wii U, I see a Nintendo that is so focused on dollar signs, even more so than they were 10 years ago. I see that they've changed in all the ways that make this industry crumble and fall apart. And man, that's pretty sad. I used to look up to this company. Not just because I was a kid and I didn't know any better. I looked up to this company because they excited me. They made things that I'd never seen before. They gave me experiences that I'd never had before, by myself and with others. And at the end of the day, like I said at the beginning of this, it's not that big of a deal. But in some ways, I feel like with the end of this era, if you want to call it that, has come the end of a company that I used to hold in really high regard. And 2 screens, 1 screen, 3D, no 3D, touch screen, no touch screen, microphone, no microphone, cameras, no cameras, latest hardware, portable hardware, a cool home menu with badges and icons and themes and great ideas, or one that's just totally blank and lifeless and corporate. I feel like there's a pretty big difference between those two. But no matter how you feel about the consoles, at least for me, I feel like the company that made them has essentially died with this era. I don't know about you guys, but that's pretty sad.